watched all the rigged elections all around the globe, and they're all rigged. But the American election is a very interesting one because it's the only election I've ever seen in the world where everyone is obsessed with killing their own children. There's no other election I've ever seen this. I've never seen the French talk about it. I don't see the British talk about it. It's not even on the agenda. And I was talking to somebody who I'm actually quite personally close with, and they were a Joe Biden supporter, and they now admit that Joe Biden was corrupt, and they admit that COVID was wrong, and they admit the vaccine's poison. They admit all of these things. I'm like, so you're voting Trump? It's just like, but I can't vote Trump because of Roe versus Wade. I was like, listen, we're talking about World War III, Israel, Lebanon, Gaza, Iran, World War III, Russia, Ukraine. We're talking about inflation. Nobody can even pay their bills. Talk about an open border where thousands of people without passports are parading across the border, blood on the streets, drugs on the street. Don't you think there's more important things at which week you can kill your own child? How stupid are you? The fact these people even exist shows that it's almost over for the West. The fact there are people who still believe that Kamala is going to somehow be a good leader. It should be 99% Trump. The fact it's even 30%. Who are these humans? Name one time she stood up and said how she's going to fix a single problem. I'd love to sit with her and say, Kamala, okay, I'm going to give you a fair shot. Never met you before. Please explain an issue and explain to me your compendious plan of how you're going to fix that issue. Right. In 2 minutes. Go. Inflation's bad. We know. How you gonna fix it? We need more money. Yeah, we know. How you fix it? She can't even answer a question. And there's people out there sitting there going, yeah, she's good. Why is she good? Well, she's a woman. Bro, it's so over. It's so incredible. It's incredible how just psyop people can be. Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Well, that stuff is what's bred in the classrooms. And that's why I really do believe, there's no question, like our education system, even from kindergarten, was established by communists. We had this huge influx of people. It's actually a really important time in world history for people to realize the 1848ers, so to speak. They tried to overthrow what today is Germany, and it failed. And then a bunch of them who tried to overthrow the government came to America, and they went on to become Pfizer, people who instituted kindergarten. Yeah. And I think that really when our government got completely taken over, like McCarthy was actually a hero, saying like commies are here. Yeah. We're taught in the classroom that he was like this paranoid person. No, he was trying to save America. Yeah. America died the day they shot JFK. The last Catholic president shot in broad daylight by the deep state. They took over because he was going to shatter it. He had realized that the commies were in control. I mean, the CIA doesn't represent American interests at all. Like they're all about just subjugating the world. They're global elites. I think the CIA and the Mossad are the exact same organization. But it's fascinating to see that you do see this recurrence of people that are repeating things that they've learned in the classroom over and over again. Feminism is implemented in the American mindset for women from the time we are in grade school. From the time, even little projects they're doing, like to try to basically let them know that the most important thing is standing up for female rights. And so there are these like childhood traumas that they hit on when they say like, oh, abortion. And you're like, oh, and in high school I was taught like, that if I don't fight about this issue and we give the state's going to control my body. It's completely made up and it's a nonsense, but it's psychological conditioning that's hard to break because it happens when you're a child. In the same way that those studies proved, you molest a kid, then for life you can kind of create this person into a psychopath. And you will see that there is a thread between men that have been molested and they do become psychopaths. And they hate in a way that doesn't make sense to most people. And it's the same thing for these women. Like these feminists don't even realize it's like a childhood trauma. They made you watch some movie in health class and told you that your rights are going to be taken away unless you're allowed to kill your baby. It's a nonsense. It's insane.
Bro, the state's going to control your body, but they'll get the injections. Same people will get all the vaccine injections when you talk about controlling your body. You're right. It's a massive logic fail. And like I said, misogynist, blah, blah. But feminism is one of the most destructive mindsets they've installed in the entire population because feminism prevents birth rates. And you can argue about 100 different things, but you'd like to agree that if you have a population, the population needs to sustain itself, at least, right? You'd say if you have 1,000 people and you want to have a civilization of 1,000 people in 200 years from then, they need to have children. We could all agree that population is important, right? Feminism is extremely destructive to that. It's destructive because it makes the women not want to have kids, but more importantly, it makes men not want to have kids with the feminists. You can't tolerate them. They're intolerable people. They're the worst possible people. I think men build and protect society. We're certainly building it. We're failing to protect it. But women have the magic. Women have the ability to reproduce, and birth rates are falling. It's kind of interesting. You look at why the borders are open or why all these people are flooding into the nation, which is thinning the culture. We'll talk about that in a second. But I guess from a macro and a micro, you look at things differently. Like if you look at these two cups close up, you can see they're very different things. But if you look at them from space, they're just two cups. And I think the people who are in charge of the world are saying, okay, well, birth rates have been decimated. That's being done. You could argue purposefully because they want to get rid of, we talk about the white replacement. I don't think it's so much about white people. I think it's about entitled people. I think they don't like that the average Westerner now wants medical care and sick pay and holidays, and they don't want any of this. They want to get rid of all the people who have standards for themselves and their quality of life, and they want to replace them with second world and third world slaves who will just work endlessly. That's what the globalists want. So they're trying to remove, by destroying the birth rates of the native populations because they have standards for themselves, and they're trying to replace them with people who they believe will just do endless work forever. Turns out that's not the case. A lot of them don't even work at all. But from the macro, it's just person. To them, they're the same. If you're living inside of that society, you understand it's not the case. You can be a Christian from a particular area or a particular ethnicity, and your town has always been a certain way, and you have someone come in from a completely other side of the world with a completely different mindset, completely different view on society and how they should function, and your society is being degraded. But what's the answer to these things? Well, the answer to these things are women need to have children. If women won't have children, it's over. I put a tweet up that really pissed off white people. I don't know if you saw it. They got really mad. It went super viral. I'll send it to you. And I was saying to the white people that it's over. I was saying the white race and all you Christian crusaders and white people and everyone who's sitting up and talking about how important it is you need to restore the West to Christianity in this white ethno-state, and Nick Fuentes and all these people. And Nick will actually agree with on a lot of things. If you're not having kids, you don't have a future. Mm-hmm. If you're not having children, you don't have a future. That's the bottom line of it, right? So they talk and they insult these immigrants, which I completely understand why they do it. They're like, we're going to have mass deportations, which is a fantasy. And they're saying, we're going to keep our countries for us. No, you're not, because an immigrant turns up and has 7, 8 children. You're paying for it with your taxes. And you can't convince your wife to have more than one because she wants Chanel bags. Well, then how are you going to have a future, right? You can argue whether it's the weakness of the man. I don't know if it's the weakness of the man or if it's the feminism that's inside of the woman. I don't know what it is. But I even just started doing this experiment when I wrote that tweet out. I was like, how many white families, pure white families do I know, outside of the Mormons, they do all right, that have more than 2 or 3 kids? There's hardly any. So you could talk about the replacement of white nations. Yeah, it's happening because there's no native birth rate. And that's down to feminism. And that's down to this whole gender dynamic being broken.
Well, they're also trying to convince women to act like men and for men to act like women. I mean, even straight men are homosexual. And that's how I feel. Even men that are straight, I'm like, but you act like a homosexual. And it was one of those things that people were asking me, you know, I didn't actually feel like, and this is kind of surprising because it was the UK, that I even met real men until I went to the UK. Like, it was very hard for me in America. I will say, like, I was in New York City, so there's obviously homosexual straight men, you know what I'm saying here. And then I get to the UK and then I meet my husband and like, he hunts, he shoots, he knows how to skin an animal. And I'm like, okay, that's what I want. Like, I want a masculine man. And so it's interesting because you and your brother have opened up this debate in America about what is true masculinity, right? This is the argument. They're not truly masculine. Like, you shouldn't follow that. Like, what's truly masculine? And then you ask, okay, then what is your prototype? Tell me who we should be following. If it's not the Tate brothers, what is real masculinity? I've asked this question before and I've gotten some answers. Some people will say, you know, Jordan Peterson is a better example of masculinity, you know? And so your idea is that people that have philosophy and talk about masculinity is true masculinity. If a war came tomorrow, just asking this question, by the way, maybe the answer is yes, I don't know. Do you think that, like, Jordan Peterson has the skills? If everything's taken away and you're in the wilderness, this is how I think my husband and me are surviving. We are surviving in the wilderness, and you're not, because you are now married to a straight homosexual. You know, who, like, he's straight, but he's also a homosexual.
Oh, you nailed it. They're all gay. Everyone's gay. You literally nailed it. I had this conversation with someone the other day. I was talking to some guy, and I was saying that I don't trust a female pilot. And he said, why? I said, it's not because I'm a misogynist. It's because I think men are calmer under pressure.
Yes.
Men are calmer under pressure. And he goes, why do you think that? It's like, why are you pretending you're confused as to why I think that? Haven't you gone through life and ever just seen a high pressure environment? Or is it just me when I've been in high pressure environments and I see women, they're not built for it. They're not supposed to be.
Unless it's kids, then it's the exact flip.
Yeah, well, then they're ready to kill.
Something happens with the kids, yes. And then suddenly, like, I'm like, George is like, I don't know, he's crying. I can't focus. I'm like, what do you mean he's crying? Like, that's like, I can do 20 things at once with children. And you're like, oh, biology is real. Like, we have these natural proclivities and they're real.
100%. Absolutely true. And you're right. And there's men. I find it extremely weird that you see these men who are begging for a female president. I mean, it just feels gay.
It's gay.
It's gay.
It's very gay.
I want a woman to be my boss. Like, it's just gay. It's just gay. I don't know what else to say. It's so weird, these people. And you're right. They often say, oh, Andrew, you're not masculine because, you're insecure. And I say, well, why am I insecure? Well, why do you have all those cars? Because I'm rich. Yeah, but why do you need to show off all those cars? It's kind of interesting. Like, the modern world was built by men trying to prove their capabilities and prove they could do things. That's what the whole world is. That's all it's ever been. We've now come along with this whole globo homo bullshit trying to convince you that a real man is so secure in himself he lets his wife get
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's a real man. But truthfully, the real men were, I'm going to go over and try and cross Antarctica by foot because no one's done it. Well, that doesn't make sense. You'll freeze to death. Maybe, but I might do it. Right? So why do men, why are we in skyscrapers? Why have we gone to Mars? Why do men buy expensive things? Why do we do hard things? That's what masculinity's always been. That's how the world was built. But now they're going to come along and say, no, that's not masculinity. Masculinity is not trying to be the best version of yourself and proving to the world that you can do what others can't do. The reason I bought 65 cars is I can put them in a row and it looks funny.
Yeah.
Ha ha, look, I can. Peacock, look what I can do. Ha. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to go any deeper. No, I don't have to drive them. I can't even name most of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've now convinced you that true masculinity is being so sure within yourself that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Well, if you don't have to prove anything to anybody, then you don't have any capability. So you're actually a useless idiot. And if you're going to sit there and be so arrogant that you believe you have no duty to the society or to your woman or to your ancestors and you can just be secure in yourself and I don't need to prove myself to nobody and I'm just secure in myself, well, you're one of the sheep being led to the slaughter because you have absolutely no capabilities whatsoever. They'll say a real man, I got in arguments on podcasts all the time. They say a real man's secure and lets his girl have male friends. I'm like, there's a male friend line. Sure, there's a line. Hi, how are you? Boom, boom. If my girl's going out on dates with some dude, like, this is clown world.
No.
It's peak clown world. And there are men who buy into this psyop. And it's kind of interesting because one of the most common questions I get asked is, Andrew, why do you still talk? Why don't you just shut up and disappear? And it's like, well, you have two choices. You either fight against this programming that's out there, or I guess to a degree you accept it. And then you have a new internal fight because your house is a mess, because your woman doesn't respect you and you're depressed and sad and you have some mental condition. You've decided you have OCD or ADHD or some garbage you saw on the TV once. And you either fight an internal war or you fight a war against the external, because this is really crazy what they're trying to implement. And I like the question you asked, like, what is a man? Truthfully, a man, I believe, is being able to do the things that are hard or do things you don't want to do because you're supposed to do them. I think that's what a man's always been. A man is supposed to be strong. He needs to be strong, so he has to become strong. That's his job. A man is supposed to be brave. It's not that you can't feel fear. It's that you have to be brave. Oh, an attacker's here. I'm afraid, but I'm a man, so I will go and engage the attacker. It is my job. And now we're teaching men, you don't have to do what you don't feel like doing. You can do what you do feel like doing. And they somehow think that this is dismantling toxic masculinity, when in fact it's actually doing the opposite, because men are born with an innate propensity for violence. And then you have men who rape and kill and murder and school shooters. When you tell men to act out their feelings, you have some little idiot who's been on drugs his whole life for some imaginary mental condition. This is why you get school shooters in the first place. He should be being taught stoicism, not this garbage. So yeah, no one can even answer what a man is.
They need to be aggressive. I see this. I now have two sons. My son, he wants to go to war. He wants to be a Spartan. He wants us to send him into the wilderness, and he's going to come back in 2 weeks, like the beginning of the movie 300, and see if he survives. I'm like, okay, this is innate. He wakes up, he grabs a sword. Him and my husband just instantly go at it, you know? And I'm like, dude, please just come to me if you want to hug. Like, I don't want to fight. I don't know what to say to you. I don't want to wake up and grab swords and fight you. Come to mommy when you need love. And when he's sick, he comes to mommy. But when he's feeling good, he wants nothing to do with mommy. He wants to go fight. He's like, he wakes up and goes, where's my father? And he's holding a sword, and I'm just like, think he's in there, right? You know what I mean? And that's beautiful. And people want to suppress that, and you.
Well, they fear it.
They fear it, yes, and they want to suppress that aggression, that natural aggression. And I'm like, no, like, you want to curate that in a way that, yes, if something happens to this family, I want to make sure that everyone can defend this family in the right way. My job is to take care of the children. Like, it is my husband's job to be able to go out and hunt and shoot and fish and do all the things that he does with his guy friends when they go on these trips and go hunting. Like, they need to be able to survive in the wilderness. And now we've created these straight homos who are like, well, I read the New York Times every day. And I'm I'm quite educated on this topic of vaccines, so I can keep my family safe from the invisible virus.
Well, this is the thing where everything goes back to the propensity for violence, right? So you sit and you talk to these people these straight homos who say, I read the New York Times every day. And I sit there and I look at them and I just think, if I grabbed you by your neck, I say it in my videos, I grab you by your throat. I say it, but I mean it.
Yeah.
I mean it. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is violence. The bottom line is how capable you are defending yourself and the people you care about. That's the bottom line of masculinity. What's crazy is in the West especially is we're importing all these people who understand this, right? We're importing a whole bunch of people who grew up in a very violent world, and they understand that violence is a solution to problems sometimes. And they understand they may get caught, but they might not, right? And we're raising a native population of men who believe violence is never the answer and that violence doesn't exist. They're pacifists. They don't believe in violence. Oh, you don't believe in violence. So if I break into your house, you don't believe in violence? Or you do believe in violence, you just want the police to be violent for you because you're a So you believe in it just the same because you'll call the cops. If you'd ever call the cops, you believe in violence because you just want to do it by proxy. So everyone believes in violence. They just want to be detached from it. We want to pretend we live in a world where violence isn't real. Violence is the underpinning of absolutely everything. And I don't think many people also understand that large wars often bring a period of peace. Most people seem to understand that. You have World War II and then there's peace that comes afterwards, although that's arguable because the American military-industrial complex has been at war ever since World War II. Nobody talks about they had World War II, and everyone talks about that one. Then there's the forgotten war in Korea. Then you got Vietnam, and then you got the first Gulf War. They never stopped going to war. They've been at war permanently the whole time, which is why they had to delink the dollar from gold because everyone worked out they were printing too many dollars, blah, blah, blah. But large periods of peace also bring war. It's cyclical. If you have a large war that brings about the population's desire for peace, well, the reason there's a big desire for peace is because the materials have been depleted and the manpower has been depleted and the people are tired, of course. But then if you have a long period of peace, you start to replenish your manpower and you start to replenish your materials, and then the other countries around you start to do the same thing. So you try to implement trade deals or some kind of black ops, or you try and sabotage XYZ so your country does better to make sure that you maintain hegemony over that scenario. And over time, if it's too peaceful, it's like a pressure cooker. It's going to blow up. We have men now living in these peaceful, even though I wouldn't even call them peaceful anymore, times thinking that war isn't coming. Or that there's not going to be some degree of, there's going to be a day where you're going to have to wake up and go, uh-oh, today's the day, right? And even if it's not physical, it certainly is spiritual what we're doing now. It's certainly already D-Day spiritually. When I saw here in Romania, the most Christian nation in Europe, most Christian nation in the world, that the government, because they're an America cuck effectively, wouldn't give protest permits to Christians after what France did. They wouldn't give the permits for some reason, or they delayed it. They said, yeah, it'd take a few months. No one will care in a few months. They know that. I had to go stand out there, right? I was amazed there weren't more people out there. But this is now, we're already at D-Day where you have to be prepared to sacrifice yourself, at least spiritually, at least for what you believe. And I guess the alternative is just to go to bed at night and feel like a coward. I don't know. Maybe for some men, that's better to just look in the mirror and know they were but at least I'm not in jail. I would be sleeping perfectly fine in jail right now because I know I went for the right reason. I'd be sleeping fine, right? So it's truly incredible. You're right. These straight gay men who have this very strange view on the world where they've tried to redefine masculinity and take it away from what it truly is, because truly masculinity is the ability to say no. And if you're going to say no, you have to defend your ability to say no. That's it. You can't say no if you don't defend it, right? No, you can't come here. Well, we're coming anyway. Now let's fight, right? It's kind of interesting. I've seen some things on the internet where they say, do men really look at each other and think about fighting each other all the time? No, not really, no. But if I walk in a room and there's 7 or 8 men my size, it does cross my mind. Like, do I know who they are?
Right.
It's just like, because we live in that world, right? But all these men who can't defend the ability to say no now find themselves in this weird quagmire where they're like, well, I can't really say no to anything because I can't defend it. So I'm going to have to say yes to everything like a but I need to find a way to look like I'm somehow important and masculine. So let me put a feather in my ear, in my earring, and read the New York Times.
And half of these people I can beat up, which is the problem. But this is a true story. You're going to love this. It actually made me think about just exactly what you're talking about when we talk about these straight homos. I was at a restaurant the other day with children. Okay? I'm sitting with children having pizza. Another gay Zionist, out of nowhere, he pretends to be a fan and then gets in my face with the camera and starts calling me an anti-Semite. If you want to see me, I have pledged on this show, the only time I will ever get arrested is if you come up to me when I'm with kids. Yeah. That is Mama Bear. That is like Mama Bear takes out the Papa Bear when you're with kids.
100%.
And so once I got someone to just like move the children, I went up to, he's with his wife. Okay. His wife allowed him to do this. If my husband ever went up to a wife and like a woman and children, and he thought he's 6'3", gets
Morally
in my
corrupt,
face.
yeah.
I got so close. I think he started realizing like I was going to fight him. Like I was literally just like, do you understand? Like I was so close to his face. I was like, you are a coward.
Yeah.
You are pathetic. I was like, I looked at his sons. I said, you should be ashamed of this. This is the opposite of what a man is.
Yeah.
His job, his instinct should be when he sees a woman and children to protect it.
100%.
I go, your father reads the New York Times, thinks everything of the New York Times tells him is real, and he suddenly got like, very kind of intimidated. I said, post the picture.
Yeah.
Post the video that you shot of me because I'm going to make you as famous as you want to be.
Yeah.
Still has not been posted.
Yeah.
Please, if you are watching, post it. Like this straight homo needs to become famous. And I said to his wife, you should be ashamed. You think this is a man to come up to children and a woman because you read something in the New York Times that told you Candace was an anti-Semite because she doesn't support Bibi Netanyahu blowing children to smithereens. Like that is your worldview now that this means I hate all Jews. Like it's such a nonsense, but this is the average man now where I was like, he needs to understand, like this man needs to have his ass beat. And I say that in the most honest sense, like you should be required as a man to be in a fight.
Yeah.
Like because it changes something within you.
100%.
Because you think you're fighting a tough battle because you're walking up to a woman and children to talk about Bibi Netanyahu.
To defend the New York Times?
Yeah. You're just like, you're a straight homo.
Bro, yeah, 100% straight homo. It's clown world. It's funny. This reminds me of a story. I haven't told this story.
But he would have never done that if it was you sitting with your daughter.
Never in a million years.
Because he would have realized right then, we're fighting right now.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting. I have, for the most hated man in the world, I have truly in life never had, up until this story I'm about to tell, a negative interaction with anybody. Everybody comes up to me and they're a fan. Or if anyone dislikes me, they don't really say anything. I've never had a negative interaction with anybody until about 3 weeks ago. It was during the World Cup and there was an England game. We were watching it here in Bucharest in like a public area. And there was some American girl. And I went toilet. And on the way out the toilet, she filmed me on TikTok and said, "Human trafficker," on TikTok. And I stopped and I turned around and I saw her. And she kind of put her phone away. And I was like, "Did you say that?" She goes, "No." It's like, "You just filmed me and said I'm a human trafficker." She goes, "No." It's like, okay. So anyway, I went right up to her, walked up to her and said, "If you think I'm a human trafficker, you're allowed to say it. You're a girl. I'm not going to hit you. But if you think I'm a human trafficker, you're allowed to say it. I'm just saying, why would you film it and then deny saying it? You don't know my story. I'm happy to tell you if you care. I don't know your story. Why did you film that? Why did you say that?" And she's sitting there with her man and her man goes, "Oh, I don't think this is necessary." I said, "My friend, you're a man. I will kill you." And I turned back to his girl and he just sat there and never said another word. He just sat there while I berated his woman. Yeah. Then I went back downstairs. I saw them arguing and then they left, right? So I guess she got in an argument with her man for not defending her, but the man understood. I can't fight. What can I do?
What are you doing?
What do you do? Yeah, that's right. Another straight homo and some silly woman. But it was interesting dynamic. But when you say you want a man who will defend you completely, right? Even her, as stupid as she is, and even her loser man, she expected, it's like your expectation you have. And then the card got pulled and I guess he changed his mind.
Right, exactly. And he probably wasn't happy that she did it.
Of course. It could, well, that's it, right? Because he's like, now why have you put me in a position where I have to die over your stupid TikTok? Yeah. Completely right. But these straight homos, it's very interesting. I love the point you just made about how he feels like he's defending society. Would Israel give a shit about him? It's really incredible. It's really incredible how people will get pulled into psyops of things that don't even matter, right? There are so many things in the world that matter today. If anxiousness was a disease, or if you could feel like if panic attacks were real, which I don't believe they are, sometimes after a day of work, I feel like this world is a mess. Sometimes after a day of scrolling Twitter and seeing everything happening, you're a bit like uneasy. You're like, how do I sleep now? What am I supposed to do? How do I prepare for these things? And I guess I'm one of the most equipped people on the planet because I'm fortunate enough to have a bunch of passports and a bunch of money. Most people don't even have that. And it's really crazy that with all of this going on, all the things people should have a vested interest in, they can get psyoped and distracted into some complete bullshit, Like LGBT rights. Cool. They already have rights. Why would you go march for what? How much further are we going to push this buck down the road? What's next? Well, we know what next is. It's children. Yeah, of course. And they need children because they can't reproduce on their own and they need your kids. They need your kids. So the plan from the beginning has been go after the straight people's kids so they have a future, right? Funny how they understand population dynamics and reproduction, more than the straight women seem to anymore. But there are straight people who will sit there and go, yeah, I believe we should support their rights. Like, on what planet are you? They're just scared to say no because they're scared to have to defend their position. And that study you mentioned that explains so much of the world. It's crazy.
All right, guys, I'm interrupting again. Don't kill me, but come on, we got to talk about skincare. You guys know the brand that I love. They also support this show. I would never send people astray when it comes to skincare because I care deeply about my skin. It's why I use Nimi Skincare. They are amazing. Their products are impressive. They are so clean. Nimi has everything that you need to build an awesome daily skincare regimen to cleanse, brighten, protect, and help fight the key signs of aging. You're going to absolutely love their charcoal skincare mask. That's excellent. I also love their vitamin C face wash. It all smells amazing, and they keep their products very clean, which is important to me. They stand up for American values. It is built in America. The products are assembled here in America. Despite the fact that Nimi Skincare is luxury, the prices are affordable because they have cut out the middleman, which is what I think everybody needs right now. We don't need to be paying extra on these products. I also love them because they are Christian-led, and you know that is incredibly important to me. As we are working with advertisers, we want to know what their actual morals are, what they believe in, to make sure that we are sending people to people that will do good in this actual world. So you can sign up right now at nimiskincare.com for a subscription to save 15% on your routine. And you'll also save an additional 5% if you use code Candace at checkout. Use that promo code Candace at checkout. If you're not sure where to start, you can take their skincare quiz to find out what would be the perfect routine for your skin type. Again, that's nimiskincare.com. That's spelled Nimi skincare.com, and use code Candace at checkout to save an additional 5%.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's just we've lost traditional masculinity, and so when people create that dynamic, when they're like, well, this is what it actually is, every person that they present being a truer example of masculinity, I encourage and I push back on that, which is just like, if this was a time of war, who would you want? Like, the natural order of things is like, men need to be masculine.
Or if they call the cops, right? When you call the cops, what kind of man do you want?
Right.
Do you want a man who turns up, who's big and burly, who's going to take action and tackle someone to the ground and make affirmative decisions? Or do you want someone who's going to sit there and philosophize over, oh, maybe he's not even a criminal? Maybe. What is a man? Like, when hits the fan, feminism disappears instantly. It always does, right? So all of it is just built inside of the society. A lot of it is men's fault also. You talk about how women are attacked with this feminism garbage from a young age, and you're completely true. It's completely true, and you're right. I was watching a Taylor Swift concert, and she has this famous line in one of her songs. I don't know her songs. I'm not a Swiftie, unfortunately.
Me neither.
But she says something.
Guys,
I
hungry.
have no eggs left. No, I'm good. The patriarchy, she says. And all these little girls are sitting there going, the patriarchy. And I'm like, I blame the fathers, because the patriarchy built that stadium. And the patriarchy put that soundstage together. And the patriarchy paid for those little girls' tickets to go and watch that. So men also have a part to play. Men have become so cucked, they're going to allow their daughters to go there and sing about how much they hate them. They'll wonder why their daughter will grow up and not listen. My daughter is not being, one, she's not listening to that. Two, I'm not sending her ever. I wouldn't allow her to go. But three, there's no way on God's green earth I'm paying for it. Like, it's also so crazy what position men have been put in. And if you say that to a man, these straight homos, they're going to sit there and go, I'm secure. I'm a real man. You don't let your daughter listen to Taylor Swift? Huh, call yourself a man? Bro, it's crazy what level the Western society is sunk to. And what's scary is that we live in a world where we think the West is the whole world because we live in the West. It's really interesting. I don't know, did you ever see that conversation on the BBC News between it was some Chinese guy, he worked for the Chinese government, and they were discussing about the electric vehicles between China and England.
No, I
didn't.
didn't.
You ever see it? It's really interesting, and I don't want to misquote it, but I think people can find it and send it to you. They were saying that China produces 90% of the electric vehicles, and the UK is concerned about that they produce too many electric vehicles, and that the UK wants to produce some more electric vehicles because they don't want China to have a complete hegemony over the future when we use EVs, etc. And the Chinese member, and they were talking about competition between the two countries. They said, how do you feel about UK trying to compete with you in the electric vehicle market? And the member of the Chinese government said, we see the UK as a country that was historically important that we'd like to have good relations with. But when it comes to population, when it comes to production capacity, when it comes to safety on the streets, when it comes to educational performance, when it comes to the ability to project force, the UK cannot compete with China in any regard.
Correct.
They're historically believe it's still World War II, but effectively they're a small island far away who we'd like to have good relations with, but we do not see as a competitor or a threat in any regard ever. He just nailed it. Like, who the are the UK?
Pretty much what Putin said, by the way, too. It's like, this is behind. The system is old.
Yeah,
Like,
who cares?
Yeah.
That's right. Completely right. So in the West, we think, the West is the center of the world. But truthfully, we're not the center of very much at all. There's a lot of countries in the world that don't see us as important as we see ourselves. And we don't have a population as large as most of the rest of the world. We don't have the natural resources. We don't have the capability to produce anything. And we're now entering a dynamic where our men, because it's going to be our people against other people, right? Especially in the bipolar world, our men and their pussy-footed approach to life are going to be pitted against men who are prepared to fight and die for real.
Yep.
And we're going to see how that all works out. I guess the idea of the Western elites is that they can just continue to use the dollar to subjugate these nations, and that they can use AI and machines. I mean, for right now,
just launch a world war out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You can reset everything by bombing and exploding and then stealing people's
that's right.
resources.
Or having better technology. We think, we don't need real men in the army because we've got better tech, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we'll see how that all works out. But I think the next 100 years are going to be very interesting when we see that. I mean, we can look at it right now. Let's look at it right now in the UK. 3 little girls were stabbed. The girls that were stabbed were the same age as my daughters. I have 2 daughters age 4. 3 little girls were stabbed to death. A man shouldn't have to feel what a blade is like entering his body, let alone a little girl. It's disgusting. I have seen 0 conversations about how to protect little girls. All I see are the straight homos marching, talking about how they're not racist. What the are you even doing? Right. Have you lost complete context of the situation? Every single conversation should be about how to protect children. And there should be nothing off limits. We shouldn't be afraid to discuss the fact that if people come from X country, they commit violent crime at a 300% higher rate than if they come from other countries. Because everyone talks about the UK being racist. It's probably one of the least racist places on the planet. You want to see racism? Go anywhere else.
Japan.
Africa.
Yep.
They're racist in Africa. They're racist in the Arab world. Everyone's racist. We're the least racist place. And instead of marching to protect little girls, the man who stopped the knife attacker should be a national hero. He should be everywhere. I haven't even seen his face. They don't want to show him because they don't want to remind people the little girls were stabbed. Instead, they wanted to divert the whole conversation to don't be racist. And now we have all these straight homo men walking around. We showed the far right. Yeah, don't be racist. As if they've achieved something. You've forgotten the argument completely. When the knife-wielding attacker is near you, you're going to piss your pants and run. And now you're walking around saying, don't be racist. Now, I agree with don't be racist, but if you are asinine and stupid enough to believe that if you're going to allow thousands of people into your border unchecked, that some of those people are not bad people, you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even say that you're too stupid to conceptualize that. I'd say they're too cowardly to admit it because they're too scared to be racist. So now they're too scared to admit that by refusing to refute that idea, they're letting bad people in. They're going to say, no, all 1 million we let in are all good. They're all doctors and they're all physicists. You don't have to be racist to understand it's not about skin color. If people come from a war zone, they've seen trauma and they're not going to be particularly balanced all of the time. I would argue if a child sees their parents blown to smithereens, they're not going to grow into a pretty balanced, happy, normal, sane individual. They're coming from the worst places on the planet.
Well, that's part of it, too, is like, people don't be racist, don't be this. I'm definitely a bigot. Like, I mean, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, that's street smarts, right? Yep. Predicting what I can garner from just looking at you, the
pattern
vibes
recognition.
You're giving,
yep.
the vibes you're giving. What can I understand about what I'm under? I don't trust you. I don't like the way you're moving. I don't like the way you're dressed. Now they're training people to go, having those gut instincts that keep you alive are bigotry, racism, homophobia. It's like, you're telling me this is a party with all homosexual men? Yeah, no, my young son's not going.
Yeah.
right? Oh my gosh, how dare you say that? Like, this is homophobic, this is heterophobic, this is all of these words really, in my view, meant to just delude people away, like from trusting their gut instincts. Your gut is divine, okay? Your gut is telling you something's not right. Like the person in the classroom says he's a non-binary person who believes that, like, age limits should be evaporated, and he's teaching your kindergarten teacher and your son, and you're allowing that to happen because you're fearful that people at school are going to call you a bigot. Like, I'm a bigot, okay? I put those on. I'm a bigot. I am a bigot. So let me figure out what I have to know about you, because I'm gonna let you know whether or not you're allowed access to my children. And so I tell people, do not allow them to call you a bunch of names that essentially rinses you from that divine gut instinct that you have. That's the Holy Spirit saying don't trust this person for whatever reason. And then you have the government telling you that whatever reason that you have, is not right because it's some ism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever.
It's pattern recognition. And they don't want you to have basic pattern recognition skills anymore. And that's what's so crazy, especially with all the things you just said. Absolutely nailed it. And especially with this racism arguing.
Like, would you hire a male nanny?
Bro, you must get this. You must get this more than me, right? Because I'm mixed, half black, half white. You were black, right? So they must say, why are you racist? Why have you turned on your own race, etc.? It's not even really truly about race. Like, in jail, I saw people lose their minds, right? I saw people in jail lose their minds, and I saw that they weren't the same anymore. I didn't want to be around those people. I would avoid them as much as possible. I hate the idea of them now being loose in society. That's just jail. In a European nation, okay, it's the worst jails in Europe, Eastern Europe. It's bad. But, we're now talking about war-torn countries, which we've blown up. We have bombed. And people are seeing their families destroyed. People are seeing children headless on the street. You're telling me these people are now sane? And they can just come here and get a job and pay their taxes? Is that what we're going to pretend we believe? Otherwise, we're deemed to be racist? It's not about the color of their skin. It's about all the things they've been through. And I don't want them in the society. But now, like I said, 3 little girls are stabbed to death, and people are marching around pretending that we need more of these people. In fact, they're so desperate to virtue signal. It's not just, okay, they're fine. It's actually, we want more. Look, I'll prove to you how unracist I am. Let in more people from the third world.
Which I'm fine with. They just need to go live with the people that blew up the third world. Yeah. Go stay at Hillary Clinton's house. Go stay at Tony Blair's house. Go stay with the families that made money blowing up, Libya and getting rid of Gaddafi. I'm totally cool with that. The people who wanted that war and supported it, you open your homes to the people who are dealing with that trauma of what you did, that, flood them out of their nations and stuff. Like, we've created the issues. Yeah. And then you're telling people that never wanted the wars in the first place that they're the ones that have to invite these people that are dealing and hating the Western world into our homes. It's a nonsense.
Well, exactly. And that's globalism.
Go to Israel.
Well, exactly. Well, that's it.
They love war. Go to Israel.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's globalism in a nutshell, right? Because globalism is effectively people who are detached from the common man's issues, making problems, profiting from it, and then all of the mess gets dumped on the common man. That's what basically happens every single time with every single thing they do. And it's really interesting because the argument is typically, they want a better life and, they need a better life. I understand they want a better life. I'm not blaming them. But letting them in your country because they want a better life is like letting someone in your house because they want a better TV. It's not theirs, right? You can't just let everyone in. Especially what's most crazy is what you let some in and not others, or you let everyone in. Is everyone going to just abandon the planet and just move to the West and it's just going to function somehow? Is that how we see these things? But I guess the two things we're talking here is very interesting because the most primitive, I would guess, and that's perhaps the wrong word, the most essential female biological impulse is reproduction. The most basic thing a woman should want to do is have children. And the most primitive male biological function is protection. Like you just said about your son, he wants his sword. We have women who don't want to have kids, and we have men who don't want to protect society. The fact that men are not marching in England right now saying we must protect all our schools and protect little girls as opposed to just advocating to allow in a bunch of military-age males who can beat the shit out of them is really incredible. It's truly incredible. It's amazing they've managed to psyop men to give up all of their protective instincts. And then they've psyoped women into not want to have children anymore. And they've replaced these with some warped version of something else. I mean, I guess it's the first time I'm saying this. I guess I'm just analyzing on the fly. But people, I guess these men marching in these anti-racism riots, I guess it's satisfying their protective instinct because they feel like they're protecting the immigrants, maybe? I don't know. and they're afraid to protect their own people because they don't want to be deemed racist and they can't defend their opinion. But it's really interesting when you say straight homos because you nailed it. They're like, you meet men and they're like, oh yeah, and they're supposed to have a wife. They're all just gay.
Yeah.
They're all gay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you can't do anything. And I could beat you up. That's why I'm like, you know, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, that your father's a straight homo. You know what I mean? Like, I know that he is straight sexually, but also he's a homo.
Yeah.
And in that 90 sense of like, there's nothing he can do here. And he knows that.
Yeah.
And so I do also want to, in closing, commend you on something, which was so crazy. So there was this person who was doing like a bunch of digital content. I thought his content was amazing, got into touch. I mean, figured out that this is like a young school kid, like basically essentially like 20 years old, like just turned 20 years old. And I'm like, dude, you're a hustler. You're a hustler. Like, where did you learn how to do all of this stuff? Like, I'm going to hire you. I'm like, what school did you go to? Harvard, Columbia, Hustler University. I said, excuse me? What's Hustler? I went to Andrew Tate's school and I learned how to do all of these. I mean, this kid is going to make a killing. I mean, I'm telling you, he's going to make an absolute killing. It's like around the clock, work.
Yeah.
Comes from the wrong side of the tracks. I figure out, hired him. One of the greatest hires that I've had, like unbelievably.
Amazing.
And so that really, to me, also signals a lot because I talk about what is so wrong with the education system. And then you learn that these kids, this is why they hate you, these kids who just want a freaking opportunity, who will work around the clock, who just want to be able to feed their families someday, who come from the wrong side of the tracks, are jumping into, I genuinely don't even know what Hustler University is, but I know that that kid is 10 times more effective than people that are coming out of with college degrees right now. As I was looking for somebody, he is a hustler, like literally is a hustler.
Yeah.
And so I want to commend you on whatever it is that you built that created this young kid who's going to absolutely crush it. And that should really signal to people that there is something so corrupt and wrong that the majority of these kids who graduate with their $100,000 degrees are going to make $35K and live a life in debt and to eventually become a slave while they laugh at people who follow Andrew Tate and go to Hustler University because they're going to take over these kids.
No, and that means a lot to me. And actually, I've been told by various people in large positions of power, and that's also one of the reasons why I was so heavily attacked, because I'm going to war against the educational system. Yeah. Because the educational system, as you just highlighted, is $100,000 for a degree. It takes 4 years. It takes up all of your time. You're in massive debt. And the fact that the loans are linked only to the education shows it's a scam in and of itself. You can't get that loan for anything else. You can only get it for the education because they don't want that loan to be out in the fair market.
Starting a
ideas.
business, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you say you can get a loan and you can get a degree or XYZ, nobody will get a degree because they know it's a scam. And it suffers from double inflation. It gets more expensive every year to go to college, plus more degrees exist every year. It basically has no value whatsoever. And we started Hustlers University as a way to teach children, not even kids. It was to teach people how to make money online primarily. We have 18 modern wealth creation methods. It's $49 a month. And we decided to make it, we said, look, we're going to put it out there in the marketplace of ideas. You don't need to get a loan to come here. You can spend your $49 on pizza or you can spend it on this. We're competing with the entire world and we're very large.
I actually want to model it now because people have been saying to me, like, you should do like a seminar and stuff. And I'm like, actually, you're so right. Like, I wish I had not been a fool and taken out $100,000. I paid it back. Yeah. But I learned nothing.
Yeah.
I learned nothing. Everything that I actually became in life was because of the street smarts that I already had.
That's right.
And I would have rather have spent the $49 on the Hustler University program so I could learn what skill set, here's what they're using. He literally said he learned editing skills that somebody else would have paid $150K to learn.
Yeah, we're doing very well. And
so it's $49. Tell me again how it works.
So it's $49 a month. You get access to 18 modern wealth creation methods. We teach all the different things about how to make money. We also have some concentration tests in there because a lot of the people who join are quite young and they have TikTok brains. So we force them to learn how to sit down and pay attention again. And we teach 18 different ways to make money. We have different professors in there. We have live calls every day. It's now the largest online educational platform in the world. We own university.com, which they really hate. That was an $8 million domain. So we bought university.com.
No way.
Yeah, that's ours. And I've actually been told that me going to war against the educational system is one of the reasons I got in so much trouble, because now you have children who are choosing $49 a month and then starting to make contracts and make money online within a few weeks, as opposed to going to get these $100,000 degrees and getting in debt. So we're doing very, very well. And I'll tell you something.
I hired someone. He even said, I graduated at the top of my like Hustler University class. I mean, he was like, yeah, I was one of the best in like sales. And I was just like, I think it's incredible. I love it. As someone who came with a family that could not afford a single dollar towards the education system, someone I was then forced to drop out in my senior year, who then became a slave to loans. Yeah. I really want to commend you on that, because that kid is now cutting so many corners in life because of something that, the monstrous Andrew Tate
taught him how to do. But
Yeah.
we teach
Creator.
we teach agency, and also one of the reasons why we decided to do that is I also think that it's a lot easier to resist oppression if you have the ability to make your own money. A lot of these people, once they start working corporate, they're screwed. You know, if you work for a corporation, you're going to have to get the jab, and you're going to have to wear the mask, and you're going to have to go to HR meetings, and you're going to have to call that he or she. So by teaching people to make their own money and have their own, or at least have their own faith in themselves that they can make their own money, it allows them to be freer in their minds. Hustler's University has been under massive attack by the Matrix as well. We have a whole bunch of tech problems. They keep trying to attack us and hack us and all these kind of things. And the MSM actually did an article attacking me, saying that I am promoting homophobia inside of my university, because what happens is, I mean, we have 250,000 students now. It's quite large.
Wow.
So I'm not in charge of all of the chats. Of course, I'm CEO, so I don't even know what's happening in the chats all the time. But we have open chat rooms where the students can talk with each other, which are moderated by AI, and we have a few moderators, but we can't moderate everything. And one guy said, "How do I cancel my subscription?" And everyone started replying rainbows. And I found it super funny. And because I laughed about it, they did this whole BBC hit piece on how my school promotes homophobia. Like, there's nothing I can do right in the world, unfortunately. I have TatePledge.com. I dedicate $25 million a year to feeding people. That's somehow wrong. I have an online educational platform that costs less than pizza, that teaches children how to focus and pay attention to make money online. Somehow that's wrong. I teach men how to be strong and to resist oppression and to go to the gym and not be afraid to stand up for themselves. Somehow that's wrong. Like, you can't win against these people anymore.
Well, because you're teaching them the code of how not to be enslaved by the Matrix. And so that's problematic. It's why I'm deemed problematic. It's why Ye, who survived Hollywood, in my view, survived MK Ultra attempt, is considered problematic, because you're teaching people to believe in themselves. And I think that's the number one thing that I have learned throughout all of this, is that what they really hate is the mother effing audacity. Like, the audacity, Candace, when for you to go out on your own and like you are a part of this and you think that you can just keep saying that Brigitte Macron is a man. Yeah, Brigitte Macron has a penis.
Yeah.
I've said that, and I'm going to keep saying that,
That's right.
because I've looked into it and it's true.
Been around.
And yeah, I've been around. I know a man when I see one, and this does pass the sniff test. And to say, you know, that these acts happened. And so I think that is the problem with people like you, people like me, people like Ye, is that we're giving people the permission to be themselves.
It's so interesting you say that, because the first time I was ever super heavily attacked by the Matrix is when I said depression wasn't real. And the backlash was incredible.
Because drugs. They drug these kids out of their minds.
That's right. They were so desperate to try and convince me or demonize me for saying depression wasn't real. And I was like, look, feeling depressed is real, but I believe you have control over your own mind, and it's down to you to fix it. You don't need drugs, and you haven't caught a disease. You just need to change your scenario, change your settings. Now, PTSD is real. I can tell you, I had it after jail. I know that mental health issues are real, of course. What I'm trying to say is that depression as an idea in the West is so massively overprescribed that it no longer has any value.
It's just sadness.
It's just sadness.
You're just sad. That's a normal human emotion. Like, go outside, go for a run, hang out with your friends.
That's right. I see
that's going to keep coming, like waves of sadness. We're all sad. We get sad sometimes.
Completely. I see it all the time. I see men to me, oh, I'm depressed. I look at them and say, I'd be depressed too if I was you. You're a loser. Yeah. Like, of course you're depressed. Your life's because you're a loser, because you've achieved nothing. So it's not a disease. You've got work to do. That's the bottom line of it. We've overprescribed it to the point where it has no point at all. I'm sure 1% of depressed people might have something wrong with them, of course, fine. But if you're going to say everybody has depression, I don't even know what the statistics are, but I read something very scary about the amount of people in America that are on some kind of psychotropic
They start
drug.
them young. They'll be like, oh, you have anxiety.
Is it like 20% or 30% of people or something?
It has to be more. It has to be more. Genuinely, like, everybody is on these drugs, and they know long term that these drugs eventually make you crazy because you're playing with the chemistry of your brain. You should never do that.
See, I apply this to my current circumstance. I apply this to my current problem because the way you always attack men to try and damage your influence is sexual crimes, right? So I'm applying this to my own case. 3 different countries, they've called over 2,000 women who I've ever known in my life. And they managed to find these 2 idiots, and you've done a breakdown of the case, which I super appreciate. And they haven't found anyone else, thankfully. But if 30% of the people they're calling are on mind-altering drugs, that's scary to me. I'm thinking, wait, as a full-grown man, if you ever get famous and you ever talk against the Matrix and you ever have any kind of money and influence, because your ability to speak freely is directly correlated with your insignificance. You can only talk freely when nobody listens. If people listen to you and you talk freely, you soon realize that there really isn't that much freedom of speech, because they will come for you and they will try and wreck you with everything they can.
Right.
It reminds me of a point on freedom, which I want to talk about quickly. But Now we're saying that this percentage of the population are on drugs. I always found this interesting when they say, we've been through his past and we found these people. What percentage of the population are autistic? What percentage of the population are mentally ill? And then what percentage of the population are on mind-altering drugs or depressed of some kind or anxious or whatever they're on? And then we're going to say and find someone from 11 years ago and say their word, their eyewitness testimony without any other proof is golden. It's just so crazy.
It's Blasey Ford. 20 years ago.
Yeah,
happened.
it's scary to me. It's actually very scary. The point I wanted to make on freedom is very interesting because you've experienced how the Matrix tries very hard to shut you up and they try to intimidate you. They try and ruin your life and intimidate you. That's effectively what they try and do. And it takes a particularly stubborn type of person.
I am. I'm a Taurus. I'm just like
I'm ready. I'm built different.
I'm built different.
I love being a thorn in their side much more than whatever they can do to me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm in jail. I'm like, yeah, but I'll piss them off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they hate how happy we are too.
Oh, completely.
And they're like, this shouldn't be the results.
They're miserable.
We've done the studies.
Yeah.
And once we do these psychological attacks and we psychologically terrorize them and their family, they should be fatigued and broken.
That's right.
And then we just emerge and we're like, hey.
Still standing.
Built different.
They can't stand it. But another one of my theories about the LGBT whole thing and the reason that they're marching in the street is, of course, they're trying to get everybody's children. But I also believe that it's part of propping up the false guise of freedom, right? Because what the West has built itself on is a very thin culture, and it's built itself on the idea that everybody can get rich. Nothing unifies us. If you look at here in Romania, even in this country, everyone has the same language, they have the same religion, they all watch the same TV shows growing up. Right? They have the same folk stories. They do the same thing at Christmas. Everyone has a similarity amongst them. So even if they disagree politically, there's a lot that unifies the people, which is why it's a safe society. I remember when we went to school when we were young, you'd go and you'd talk about the TV show from the night before that everybody watched. Everybody. And now we don't have that anymore, right? So the only thing that unifies people in the West, because there's nothing that unifies us. We don't agree on the flag. We don't agree on religion. We don't not the same skin color. We don't speak the same language. There's nothing that unifies us except this idea that we can become rich. Go to the West, get rich, be nice to people. But now everyone's realizing you're not going to get rich. And this is where the problems are coming because they're realizing the American dream's a sham. And it's a lie. So we have this very thin culture. And we say these other countries, well, they have thicker cultures. Their cultures aren't thin, and a thick culture is good for the cohesion of society, but they're not free. And we're free. And then I sit and think, well, if you speak against authority in the West, they teach you a lesson, so you're not actually free. So how do they prop up this false idea of freedom? What they do is they put the freaks to the front. So what they do is they push the freaks to the front. So they say, look, this person chopped their off. We're free. In other countries, you can't chop your off. It's like, okay, that's fine. But I am not free to do anything important, like speak against power, like speak against AIPAC.
You're free to hurt yourself.
You're free to do dumb. You're not free to actually talk about anything important ever. And I feel like one of the reasons why they're promoting all of this degeneracy is to try and keep this bullshit idea of freedom alive. Because if they took that away, you'd wake up and realize, oh, okay, this is actually no different than most of the world. And I'm not going to attack only the West for this. You can't talk against Putin in Russia, and you can't talk against Islam in Saudi, and you can't talk against the king of Laos. I'm sure you're going to pay a price. That's how the world actually is. We're the only ones who are lying about it. Sitting and saying, no, you can't talk, you can, we're free. The truth is you can't talk against authority at all. And to try and distract everyone and keep this bull dream of freedom alive, they're going to push freaks to the front, which is why I think that the freaks are getting more and more outlandish because people are starting to realize that the freedom isn't real and they're starting to feel the cage and close. So as people are starting to sit there and realize, wait, maybe I don't live in a free country. Maybe my government is owned. Maybe they are all homosexual pedophiles. Maybe I am paying too much taxes just to blow up children. Maybe nobody has my interests at heart. Maybe my elections aren't real. Maybe my children are being brainwashed. Maybe my streets are unsafe because they refuse to police them properly. Maybe all these drugs could be stopped. Maybe, wait. He's chopped his off.
There's a man in a dress.
It's free. Freedom. And I really think
you could never have a man wear a dress in Putin's Russia.
That's right.
I think I want to go there. That sounds like, yeah, I don't want men wearing dresses.
And that's the most crazy thing about it, is that trying to show this freedom, they're actually showing to anybody with a brain things we don't even want to see, right? You can take that away. That's fine. Take that away. Another thing about talking against government, because I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, okay, well, then why are you saying America's so bad when you can't talk against government anywhere else? And I said, well, the reason for that is because if you're in Russia, you know who your boss is, right? I don't personally disagree with Putin, so I wouldn't want to talk against Putin. But if you live in Russia and you do want to talk against power, you know who you're talking against. Our biggest problem here in the West is that we don't even truly, really know who we're talking against. I know that the LGBT homo mafia are in charge somewhere, which I know that's clear because they can in the Senate building and nothing happens. So that's obvious. But it's like, Who? And we're spending all our time going down rabbit holes of Israel or Big Farm or military industrial complex or Globo Homo, or you're like, who is even in charge of this mess? Davos, WEF. That's the thing that's most scary to me. It's not the fact that we can't speak against power, because you can't in a lot of places. It's that we're not even allowed to know who the powerful are, because then they're accountable. It's all just theories. If they were to say it's this person, and this person, those people would be in a lot of trouble very quickly. Mm-hmm. So they've removed their attachment to anything. So there's not even any accountability anymore in the West. That's what's truly scary. I'm just asking, I would like to know who's in charge here. I'd like to just wake up and say, you walk into a restaurant and everything's manager. Like, why is there cockroaches? What's going on? I'd like to just go, who's the manager of the West now? Who's actually in charge of any of this mess anymore? At least in other countries, you get the good fortune of knowing who your boss is. Right. Right?
Yeah, I keep trying to figure out why I'm supposed to hate Putin. I'm like, okay, so he doesn't let people desecrate churches. You can't just take your boobs out as a woman and like say you're protesting and stand on top of like a statue of Jesus Christ. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to be hating this. You're telling me this is authoritarian, but what you guys are doing, locking up people for peacefully protesting on January 6th, hunting grandmothers, is not authoritarian.
That's right.
Because women are allowed to be whores.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, everything about this, like if that's going to be the boss, that makes more sense to me than the people, the deep state, the homosexual agenda, the pedophilia that's being promoted, the pedophiles are allowed to write articles and protect other pedophiles. Sounds a lot better to me to have him as my boss than the, like you said, the invisible bosses, or maybe one boss who knows that we're fighting and we see that they're perverse.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you.
Yeah, he's a competent nationalist, which is what anybody with a brain should want for their country. You should want a competent nationalist who puts your interest above the interests of anybody else.
Biden showering with his 4-year-old daughter, and the whole mainstream media colluding to hide the diary. We have Hunter Biden smoking crack and sleeping with people that look way too young, talking about incest on text messages, and the entire mainstream media colluding to cover these stories. Yeah, no, I think I want to try the other boss if I can, just for a second. I just want to try to work there for a week.
Absolutely.
And see what happens.
Absolutely. So and you're completely right. We say, Russia's not a free country because, you can't do LGBT insanity. And that's the only thing they can really come at them for. They can't come at them for, they've arrested 1/10 of the people the UK have arrested for Facebook posts.
Wow.
So I think Tucker highlighted this. In the UK, I think it was in 2022, they arrested 4,500 people for their social media comments. In Russia, it was 400. So the UK is 10 times worse for policing speech than Russia. Free country, right? But Russia's not free because we don't allow them to, they're not allowed to poison the children, so they're not free. So it's actually the thing that's most scary about this freak show is the reason they're pushing it so hard to the front is because they're trying to keep this imaginary balloon of freedom and the American dream and all this garbage ahead, because we have a very thin culture. Nothing's unifying us in the West besides the idea that somehow we're free and that somehow we'll one day get rich. That's it. And that's what's so scary. You know what I found interesting about American culture? The eclipse that was recent. There was an eclipse where the solar eclipse, it was like a few months ago. Can't remember. It was going through a few states. And I was reading on Twitter, they were talking about how the eclipse is coming and you need to be careful because it's going to be dark for 2 minutes and beware of crime and all this shit. And I sat there thinking, American culture is so thin that if it gets dark in the middle of the day for 2 minutes, there's going to be crime? People are going to rob cars? Is that how close we are to apocalypse? Is it that bad? Like, even we talk about Ukraine-Russia war, even though I agree with Putin, I think he's completely justified. The Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government, who I have distaste for, but the Ukrainian people, they're still in lines buying food. It's war. They're in a line with money buying food during war. America, it'd be looting. It would be fires. It would be free for all within 2 minutes. We are on the absolute precipice of societal breakdown all of the time. And the only thing that's keeping it together is everyone sitting around going, don't worry, you'll be rich one day, you'll be rich one day, while a political class just rape the tax base for as long as they can before they disappear into the sunset. How long until this all goes wrong? I mean, it's an interesting thing to observe from afar. It's super interesting.
Yeah, I think about it every day. I tell people I have an apocalyptic mindset. I've learned to grow vegetables. Yeah. My husband hunts, he fishes. We're going to be good in the middle of a forest and we're going to survive. And you better think deeply about who you would want. I say this all the time, in your tribe. And you're going to realize that it all comes down to basic survival skills.
Yep.
Can you hunt? Can you shoot? Can you fight? Can you grow food?
Yep.
Can you take after the children? And the majority of Westerners are ill-equipped for those things. They're like, well, I can receive the New York Times and read it and comprehend what they're telling me to believe, and that's going to be problematic. And so in conclusion, I would like you to speak to the straight homos. Because the straight homos, they need some guidance, you know? They need some guidance. They do.
It's
they
true.
think they hate you, but deep down they know that there's something that you're saying that really what they hate is what was inside of themselves. There's like a cowardice within them that they hate, and so they have to attack you. And so we're going to get free advice. You don't even have to sign up for Hustler University. You don't even have to buy a Standis cup. You're going to get free advice, all you straight homos out there, from Andrew Tate, and you can just implement this into your life. Andrew Tate, take it away.
Sure. All right, let me try and think of something which is going to be inspirational. So
I'm going to whoop your ass.
I should say the reason they're a coward in the first place is because they're afraid of confrontation. But I want everyone at home to understand, especially if you're a man, that confrontation is certain and it's always going to be around. If you're a king, there's never been a point in human history where you were a king with an empire where people were not trying to take your empire from you. And if you're not a king with an empire, then you're a pawn in somebody else's empire and you're going to have your head chopped off for some reason anyway. Confrontation is certain. If you try to avoid confrontation, you're going to end up in confrontation with yourself. The reason these straight homos are so desperately sad, the reason they have ADHD and anxiety and depression, the reason they're sitting at home, even if they don't admit to these ailments, wondering why they're so unhappy all the time, is because you're fighting an internal battle. Your monologue is different in your mind from what your spirit truly wants. You want to be respected. You want to be strong. You want to stand up for what you know is right. You want to be a man, and you're just too afraid to engage the enemy. So you're going to self-destruct. You're going to turn on yourself. There's a fire inside of you. There's a fire inside of absolutely every man, and you can either direct it at your enemy and do your very best to destroy him, or it's going to burn inside of you and eat you alive. You have to make a choice. The cowardice that you feel that prevents you from engaging the enemy is the biggest betrayal, because now you're just engaging yourself. The battle's certain either way. So I strongly recommend you find who the enemy is and direct your efforts towards their destruction, as opposed to sitting there allowing yourself to self-immolate.
I think it's actually very sage advice. There is a fire in all of the men, and it has to be directed in the right way. Well, Andrew, it has been a pleasure having you. This conversation is going to be so banned, so demonetized.
Sorry.
I don't care. I literally don't care. Like I said, don't care about different, because people need to hear it. And I also am very optimistic, because I think that people are starting to recognize that we keep telling them the truth about what's happening in the world, and it's taking them a while to catch up. But there's enough distrust now in the mainstream media that people are starting to listen to independent voices and go directly to the source, rather than allowing the mainstream media to tell them about those people and pretend that they're hateful because we believe in natural order, you know? All right, guys, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Candace. We will see you next time.